When we read, sometimes the text triggers the response that causes us to think in a certain way, to make a prediction or infer something, make a connection, visualize or question something. And we have to be alert for these moments and then explore why that's important. And that's why we have signposts. These are signs that we want to be alert to as we read. So the first signpost that we're going to look for that you can find in almost any story that you read is called contrasts and contradictions. So let's define those words and we'll talk about what they mean when we read. So contrast and contradictions both have the word part contra, which is against. And then contradictions also has diction, which is speaking. So contrast means to show a difference. And you can see a picture of a really dark background in the glass and then a really light background. That's a contrast, a complete difference, and you can see it right there in that picture. Contradictions are a situation or ideas that go against one another and show the opposite. So you can see there's a little picture. On the top, there's a sign that says do not enter. And then underneath it says enter only. Those are direct opposites. But that's a contradiction. We need to stop there and figure out, am I supposed to enter or should I not enter? What's going on here? So contrasts and contradictions can show us how a character develops or changes over time. So an author will show us how character changes through contrasts, differences, and contradictions, the opposites, in a character's behavior. And remember, a character's behavior is what a character does, says, or thinks in the story. So when we look at what a character learns, we can find the theme. So this technique can help us find the theme as well as setting and plot and character development. So let's look at an example from Harry Potter. In Harry Potter, there's a character named Hermione. And Hermione usually has the answer to every question. She always studies and wants the teacher to call on her, and she's always ready to give the answer, if not more information. So what would you think if one day Hermione came to class and she didn't have her homework done? I'd wonder, why is Hermione acting this way? Is she sick? Is something wrong? The change in behavior contradicts what we've come to expect Hermione to do. So when you're reading and a character says or does something that's opposite, contradicts what you expect them to do, you should stop and ask yourself, why is the character doing that? And the answer could help you make a prediction or make an inference about the theme, the plot, or the conflict. As you read, try to answer that question so you can learn more about the character and the life lesson that the author's trying to share. So let's go back to Chomp Chapter 1 and find some contrasts and contradictions. Chapter 1. I'm going to read. You're going to have your post-it notes and a pencil along with your book, and you're going to follow along. I'm going to stop you when I see a contrast or contradiction. I don't know where they're going to be. This is just like driving and looking at the signs when you're driving. I have to stop when I see a sign that says to stop. In this case, I'm going to stop when I see a contrast and contradiction, and I'm going to ask myself, why is the character doing that? Or why is the character doing this or acting this way? Okay, so here's an example. Mickey Cray had been out of work ever since a dead iguana fell from a palm tree and hit him on the head. The iguana, which had died during a hard freeze, was stiff as a board and weighed 7.5 pounds. Mickey's son had measured the lifeless lizard on a fishing scale, then packed it on ice with turtle veggies in the cooler behind the garage. This was after the ambulance had hauled Mickey off to the hospital, where the doctor said he had a serious concussion and ordered him to take it easy. And to everyone's surprise, Mickey did take it easy. And that's because the injury left him with double vision and terrible headaches. He lost his appetite and dropped 19 pounds and lay around on the couch all day watching nature programs on television. I'm going to stop here because, as I'm already reading, I'm alert for contrasts or contradictions, and when I spot one, I want to pause and ask myself, why would the character act this way? At this point, I'm surprised that Mickey is taking it easy since it seems like he used to be very different. And the text says that Mickey is acting differently than what people expect, so I'm going to ask myself, why is Mickey doing this? I'd expect that Mickey would want to take care of himself, but the text says that wasn't normal. And right now I don't know enough about Mickey to know why this is a surprise, but I might be able to infer that he's usually a tough guy. Let's keep reading. I'll never be the same, he told his son. Knock it off, Pop, said Wahoo, Mickey's boy. Mickey had named him after Wahoo McDaniel, a professional wrestler who'd once played linebacker for the Dolphins. Mickey's son often wished he'd been called Mickey Jr. or Joe or even Rupert. Anything but Wahoo, which was also a species of saltwater fish. It was a name that was hard to live up to. People naturally expected somebody called Wahoo to act loud and crazy, but that wasn't Wahoo's style. Apparently nothing could be done about the name until he was all grown up, at which point he intended to go to Cutler Ridge Courthouse and tell a judge he wanted to be called something normal. Pop, you're going to be okay, Wahoo would tell his father every morning. Just hang in there. Looking up with hound dog eyes from the couch, Mickey Cray would say, whatever happens, I'm glad we ate that bleeping lizard. On the day his dad had come home from the hospital, Wahoo had defrosted the dead iguana and made a peppercorn stew, which his mom had wisely refused to touch. Mickey had insisted that eating the critter that had dented his skull would be a spiritual remedy. Big medicine, he predicted. But the iguana had tasted awful, and Mickey Cray's headaches only got worse. Wahoo's mother was so concerned that she wanted Mickey to see a brain specialist in Miami, but Mickey refused to go. Oop, I'll stop here again, because I've noticed a character acting in a way that surprised me. When the author shows us a character doing something that contradicts what we would expect, we need to stop and consider what's happening. So earlier, Mickey seemed like he was interested in taking care of himself, but now he refuses to go see a brain specialist, which could help him. So what's a question we need to ask ourselves when we see a contrast or contradiction? That's right. Why did the character act this way? Turn and talk with your shoulder partner to answer that question. And then let's come back together as a big group. Tell me some of the ideas you and your partner shared. Notice how much you're able to consider just by noticing a contrast or contradiction, and then asking yourself why the character would act this way. Let's keep reading, but this time as I read, when you notice something that looks like a contrast or a contradiction to you, make sure to put a note on your post-it with maybe CC for contrast and contradiction, or a check mark. Oh. Alright, meanwhile, people kept calling up with new jobs, and Wahoo was forced to send them to other wranglers. His father was in no condition to work. After school, Wahoo would feed the animals and clean out the pens and cages. The backyard was literally a zoo. Gators, snakes, parrots, mynah birds, rats, mice, monkeys, raccoons, tortoises, and even a bald eagle, which Mickey had raised from a fledgling after its mother was killed. Treat him like royalty, Mickey would instruct Wahoo, because the animals were quite valuable. Without them, Mickey would be unemployed. It disturbed Wahoo to see his father so ill, because Mickey was the toughest guy he'd ever known. One morning, with summer approaching, Wahoo's mother took him aside and told him that the family's savings account was almost drained. I'm going to China, she said. Wahoo nodded like it was no big deal. For 2 months, she said. That's a long time, said Wahoo. Sorry, big guy, but we really need the money. Wahoo's mother taught Mandarin Chinese, an extremely difficult language. Big American companies that had offices in China would hire Mrs. Cray to tutor their top executives, but usually these companies flew their employees to South Florida for Mrs. Cray's lessons. This time they want me to go to Shanghai, she explained to her son. They have like 50 people over there who learn Mandarin from some cheap audio tape. The other day, one of the big shots was trying to say, "Nice shoes," and he accidentally told the government minister that his face looked like a butt wart. Not good. Did you tell Pop you're going? That's next. Wahoo slipped outside to clean Alice's pond. Alice the alligator was one of Mickey Cray's stars. She was 12 feet long and as tame as a guppy, but she looked truly ferocious. Over the years, Alice had appeared often in front of a camera. Her credits included 9 feature films, 2 National Geographic documentaries, a 3-part Disney special about the Everglades, and a TV commercial for a fancy French skin lotion. She lay sunning on the mud bank while Wahoo skimmed the dead leaves and sticks from the water. Her eyes were closed, but Wahoo knew she was listening. "Hungry, girl?" he asked. The gator's mouth opened wide, at the inside as white as spun cotton. Some of her teeth were snaggled and chipped. The tips were green from pond algae. "You forgot to floss," Wahoo said. Alice hissed. He went to get her some food, and when she heard the squeaking of the wheelbarrow, she cracked her eyelids and turned her huge armored head. Wahoo tossed a whole plucked chicken into the alligator's gaping jaws. The sound of her crunching on the thawed bird obscured the voices coming from the house. Wahoo's mother and father discussing the China trip. Wahoo fed Alice 2 more dead chickens, locked the gate to the pond, and took a walk. When he returned, his father was upright on the sofa, and his mother was in the kitchen fixing bologna sandwiches for lunch. "You believe this?" Mickey said to Wahoo. "She's bugging out on us." "Pop, we're broke." Mickey's shoulders slumped. "Not that broke." "Do you want the animals to starve?" Wahoo asked. They ate their sandwiches, barely speaking a word. When they were done, Mrs. Cray stood up and said, "I'm going to miss you guys. I wish I didn't have to go." Then she went to the bedroom and shut the door. Mickey seemed dazed. "I used to like iguanas." "We'll be okay." "Oh, my head hurts." "Take your medicine," said Wahoo. "I threw it away." "What?" "Oh, this is an important place to stop because I've noticed some more contrasts and contradictions, and I bet you did too. Take a look at the places you put check marks. Before I let you talk with your shoulder partner, let's each take a moment to jot down our own thinking about the passages you've marked. Use one of the sticky notes that you have on your desk and think about Mickey and Wahoo and what each has just said or done, and answer this question. Why would the character act this way? So let's all capture your thinking, and once you have some thoughts on paper, turn again to your partner and share your thinking. Remember, we are looking for places where a character does or says something that isn't what we expect. This is a contrast or contradiction. When we find those places, we want to stop and ask ourselves, why would the character act this way? With that in mind, share with everyone some of the comments you made on your sticky notes. Remember that an inference is an idea you have that is based on what you read and what you already know. By answering this one question, why would the character act this way, you're able to make good inferences about how the character's thinking. As we keep reading, we'll discover which inferences might be supported and which ones turn out to be inaccurate. So let's keep reading. And as I read, when you find a contrast or a contradiction, you can, on your post-it note, put C plus C or a check mark. Oh, okay. Those yellow pills, they made me constipated. Wahoo shook his head. Unbelievable. Seriously, I haven't had a satisfactory bowel movement since Easter. Thanks for sharing, said Wahoo. He started loading the dishwasher, trying to keep his mind off the fact that his mom was about to fly away to the far side of the world. Mickey got up and apologized to his son. I'm just being selfish. I don't want her to go. Me neither. The following Sunday, they all rose before dawn. Wahoo lugged his mother's suitcases to the waiting taxi. She had tears in her eyes when she kissed him goodbye. Take care of your dad, she whispered. Then to Mickey she said, I want you to get better. That's an order, mister. Watching the cab speed off, Wahoo's father looked forlorn. It's like she's leaving us twice, he remarked. What are you talking about, Pop? I'm seeing double, remember? There she goes, and there she goes again. Well, here we are at the end, and my head is full of thoughts. The first thing I want you to do is look back at this portion we read and find the contrasts and contradictions that you thought was most interesting. And then, what's a question you want to ask yourself? Why did the character act this way? Now use another one of your sticky notes to jot down your thoughts. Now turn and talk with your shoulder partner.